Welcome everybody to the Helpful Village release webinar, July 17th, 2024. Agenda for the day, news, but those are very short news. And then improvement ideas. I have one improvement that we did this month that I want to show you, but it's a very easy one. And essentially most of the session today will be a training session about what to do when your members or people in your audience are not receiving your emails. There are different cases because there are group emails, individual emails. So we'll be discussing about all of that, and we can discuss about any other thing after that. But before we get into that, there's a few reminders. First reminders is that we are doing a release webinar today, but there is another release webinar on August 21st, where we will be doing this newsletter training that we were discussing. There is another V2V hosted webinar. There's a typo on my slide, because that is next week's July 24th. It says June, but it's actually July 24th at the usual 2 p.m. Eastern. That's the Q&A webinar that we do. So essentially, that's taking place next week. And then the rest are useful links. So where to find the training docs guide, the help center with our documentation for the software, the collaborative website Slack, where you can ask questions and discuss topics with other villages, and the form for submitting improvement ideas. As for the Q&A webinar next week, the best thing is to send an email to Gary Frankel, who's our national coordinator, and he really helps us prioritize or coordinate or organize your questions. So we are happy to answer all your questions, but if you can send them to Gary using this email address, hvusers@v2vnetwork.org, that allows him to group the questions, put them in the right order, etc., and then he sends those questions to us ahead of time, so we have a little bit of time to think about the best way to answer those questions. You can also come to the webinar and ask your questions live. You see what I'm saying? But priority will be given to people that do the things in the right order and send the email ahead of time. So and Gary is great at organizing and coordinating all of that. This is a quick reminder also about the help center. If you don't know about this help center, this is where you find all the documentation. This is also the best way to submit a ticket. If you need to tell something to our team, at the top right here, there is a submit a request, and that's how you create a ticket to get our team to look at your issue. The good thing about this, if you do it that way, the system is smart enough to suggest you maybe the solution even before you submit the ticket. So Help Center, I have mentioned several times, so that's, you find it under support.helpfulvillage.com. That's where you would find the documentation and also submit if you have a bug or a issue or a data issue on your platform. If it's about improvements, changes, some kind of stuff that does not exist in Helpful Village or new ideas, that you do it on a different form that is ask.helpfulvillage.com. Okay, now we're going to go into the release notes, because there is only one thing, and these release notes will be deployed to the server tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. So it's a very small release, so we don't mind doing that quickly in the middle of the day, because it's just one tiny little feature, but I think it's a nice one. And that issue started, actually, I had this other request from another member. It's like, I can minimize this, because sometimes, you know, these faces are hiding part of the screen. So we got a question from one of our villages, and that question was related to something that you all can find is actually the notification recipients, right? If you go to menu, admin, settings, and then the contact info tab, you will have the possibility to enter the email address for different things. There is the admin email address, which is the address. I mean, those are the addresses that the system uses to notify your managers when something happens, right? For example, the most important one is the admin email address. So if you have nothing else, if there is only one administrator in your village, you don't even need the other ones. You can set up the admin who will send everything there. But if you are a bigger village and you have several people involved, you can add the email address of one of those managers, or even multiple people. You can have a treasurer, for example. You can see in this example, you have 2 people that would be receiving the email notifications about treasurer things. For example, when someone, you know, when you receive a donation, well, an email is being sent to that list of the treasurer manager emails. If there is nothing, if it's empty, well, basically we send it always to the email. But if we have a more specialized role, like in this case, the treasurer, we will send the notification to the treasurer manager email list and not to the admin. So basically, we try to send it to the most specialized one all of the time. We are actually producing this also comes from a question we had from one of our customers. It's like, okay, but what actually are the actions that spark an email to each one of these managers? And Christine already started preparing a training document. It's not finished, so it's not published yet, but she has a draft she wanted to show me because I need to compare that with the code. But we will be putting out a training document explaining what are the email notifications that are sent to these email addresses soon. Okay, so that's essentially an explanation. But that we learned something that was interesting. So basically what happened to this village is that they were sending emails through the contact form, and they didn't know where to find those emails actually. This is the, the contact us form. And we were sending actually this email when people were filling out this form. We were sending this email to the admin manager. See what I'm saying? But it's not necessarily a good idea. So I think talking to them, we had a better idea, is that when you are on the contact info and settings, you have the possibility to add, the address, the phone number, and the email address of your village, right? That is displayed publicly. If you want to do that, if you don't want to display a public email address, you don't have to do it. But then if you do it, if you have an email address here, rather than sending this contact form to the admin, we should rather send it here, because it's basically the public contact info email address that you're advertising. And then you have a contact us page. So basically from now on, we'll be sending the contact form emails to this email address if it exists, rather than sending to admin that can be, a different type of actor. Okay, that was the magical improvement. And then from that, we're going to transition to the training about communication, in particular email communications, right? So now we're going to enter this case where you're a village administrator and you're confronted with this issue. It's like you have a member, it doesn't need to be a member. It's actually any user in your platform, can be anyone from your audience, can be a volunteer, can be a donor, can be a regular person. And they are telling you that they are not receiving your emails. And sometimes we receive tickets in this way. And I didn't want to say I hate it, but I actually hate it actually, because I don't know what to do. We have villages reporting a ticket. We have members not receiving emails. So it's like, well, I don't even know where to start looking. So I'm going to explain to you different things you can look at first and investigate. And then if you can give us more kind of a fix it yourselves, is great. And then you can give us more additional information. Also, it helps us be quicker to fix it. So when this happens, this is the process to find the issue, right? This person should be receiving, but it's not. Sometimes it's not even a bug. Sometimes it's like, well, maybe the user did something. If they unsubscribe, for instance, like, well, yeah, we're not sending them because they unsubscribed. So let me start the process, right? Every time you have a person saying, well, we don't receive the email, the first thing you need to do is ask what type of email is the person not receiving, right? Because we send emails in different ways, right? You want to know, or we want to know, if it is a group email or an individual email. This means emails that are sent to a person, right? One person, or to a group of people. For example, when you have an email about confirmation for an event registration, that's an individual email, right? We're not sending it to a group of people. We're sending it to the person that registered. When you have a service request confirmation email, it's also an individual email. When it's a donation, it's an individual email. So you can see it pretty easily when it's something that is sent to only one person, that's an individual email. Opposed to that, you have the group email. So everything that goes through, your mailing list, kind of the group of active members, the group of volunteers, even your group of drivers, everything that is going out to a group is gonna be a group email. And those emails are sent in different ways. All the individual emails are sent from the Helpful Village server, right? So that's why I need to know what type of emails are they not receiving. Because if it's individual email, I need to look at what happened from the Helpful Village server. If it's a group email, then we need to look more in the MailChimp direction. So this is why it's important to have this question. I see that there is a hand raised, Margie, but give me a second because I want to finish a sentence and I come back to you. There is one individual email, right? That sounds like a group email, but it's not. It's an individual email. It's like when you have the daily volunteer email, right? That goes out. I know it goes to all your active volunteers, right? Every day, and then with different opportunities to volunteer. So you might think it's a group email, but it is actually not, because that email is a smart email. The server wakes up, and for each one of your active volunteers, we're gonna prepare an email that is tailored to their volunteer skills. put in the few service requests that they can do, and then send that individual email to that person. So that falls under the category of individual emails and not a group email. Okay, yeah. Therefore, knowing which one of these two is the first step to solve the issue. You want to know if it's one or the other. I think, Margie, you raised your hand. So
you just answered my question.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we can keep going. Next one. Okay, so there are three things, kind of sub-chapters in this training. One is what to do if the problem comes from the individual emails. The second one is what happens if the problem comes from the group emails. And then other general things, because there are things you can do with your DNS settings, SPF, DMARC, kind of some tech configuration you can do if, I'll discuss that later. But for now, we're going to enter the first subsection, which is, okay, the person is not receiving the individual emails. What are we going to look at next? Okay, first thing to look, I mean, this is kind of, kind of the joke about, if your printer plugged to the power cord, but we need to ask these questions at first. And then the first question I think you need to ask is, does this person have a valid email address? Because you can create a user in the database, right? And you can create them with a no email address. And then if you have a no email address, the email is not being sent to this person, period, right? So yeah, you want to check that on their general tab. If you look at the email address you have there. The other thing is be careful with typos, right? Because it has happened to me also where, yeah, kind of this email address looks good. Yeah, it looks good. But if it has a typo, the person cannot receive the email anyways. Okay, now, next. If the email they're sending is an individual email, but then you still have subcategories of individual emails, right? So if they're talking, that's why you really want to know what type of email is he not receiving. If it's the daily volunteer email, for example, if the person is receiving the confirmation for event registration, for donation, but only daily volunteer emails he's not receiving, then we're going to do the following. It can be that a volunteer can have a vacation period activated, or also that they can unsubscribe. So I'm going to show this in my next slide. If you go to the person profile, right, the admin profile, the one that you can see as an admin when you're searching, and then you go to the volunteer tab, you will find these two areas in there. You have the possibility to activate a vacation period, right? So imagine you have one of your volunteers that is going to go on a summer vacation to Dallas for a salsa congress, and he doesn't want to receive the volunteer email addresses during that time. They can request you to activate the vacation period. So you check the box here at the top, right? And then you say, well, this person is going to be on vacation from the 1st of August to the end of August. And then basically the daily volunteer email will not go out if the person has an active vacation period and if we are on that vacation period, right? So yeah, so now another thing to say, like you can activate the vacation period for your volunteers. If they call the office or send you an email, the admin can go here and find it. But also the volunteers can do it themselves. When they log in, right, if they go to the top right and they go to my profile and they edit their profiles, they can activate and choose their vacation date, which kind of makes sense, but you need to know that, well, maybe they did it themselves and you were not aware of that. And then the other thing is that when we send the daily volunteer emails out, it contains a link allowing the volunteers to unsubscribe from that particular email. So, you can have a person, if they can click on a link that allows them to say, well, I don't want to receive the daily volunteer emails. I don't like that too much. I would rather prefer your volunteers to call the office and I don't know, do something about that email address. Basically, I don't know. Potentially, it could be removed from the volunteer groups or, from the active volunteer checkbox or something like that. But actually having this link is good because if we allow people to unsubscribe themselves without contacting you, that helps our anti-spam score, and that increases our chances of having good emails and good reputation so that we get to their inboxes. So basically, but it's a good rule also. You see what I'm saying? If we allow people to, stop the email communication by themselves, that clearly, improves our anti-spam score. So yeah, just check these two things. You go to the volunteer tab, you want to see if their vacation period is activated from when to when, and then if this person unsubscribed. If they unsubscribe by themselves and they want to resubscribe, well, you can uncheck this box and that's it. And the same thing here. If they are on active vacation period, you can uncheck and then just save, and these two things will be done. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So maybe what it was this, maybe it wasn't, right? Or maybe it's a different type of email. So we move on with the process. Let's see what we have on the next slide. Okay, you have individual emails. We're still on the individual emails. We're not talking MailChimp now yet, okay? So if it's an individual email that they're not receiving, maybe it bounced, right? So let's look at this. If you go to the admin profile of a person, so pretty much the same place that we said before, on the general tab, there is a tag section, right? Where you have all these checkboxes about different things, MailChimp and stuff like that. And there you will find two read-only checkboxes, right? And that are called this way. As you can see on this screen, it's HV email bounced and HV email complaint, okay? So you cannot check those boxes, but those boxes might have been checked by Helpful Village for you. So it happens that our system is going to try to send an email, right, to this person. And you know that we have our infrastructure with Amazon, right? So if Amazon is having trouble delivering the email, right, they get a notification basically that this Helpful Village email bounced. So basically that the recipient of the emails inbox was not set up right for different reasons. For the bounce reason can be several things. Well, if you have a typo, right, well, then you can get a bounce notification. If the mailbox was full, you also get a bounce notifications, or if it's the wrong address, well, different bounce reasons exist. Can be temporary, right? So same thing, you want to check if the email is spelled right, or even if basically the member or the person is telling you that their email address, they had issues before, but those issues have been fixed and now you can go at it again. Well, then you can actually go to the Helpful Village tag group and then remove this person from the HV email bounced group, right? And if this checkbox is checked, the system, if any of these two checkboxes is checked, Helpful Village is not trying. You see what I'm saying? It's like we had issues in the past that are unresolved as much as we know, so we're not sending emails. If you want to try again, you go to that group, you uncheck that box, and then we will try again. So there are two different boxes here. One is bounced, right? It's like, okay, didn't work. And the other one is complained. So if you have a person, a recipient that clicks on, well, identifies your messages as spam, right? Well, then same thing, right? We don't want to break our reputation. So they will be put in this group that it says HV email, this person complained about our emails, and we're not trying to send them emails because we don't want to let them tell Google that we are spam all the time. So maybe they did it accidentally, so you can bring them back, but essentially this is what happened. So the Helpful Village emails will not go out if any of these two boxes are checked. So you go back in here and you check this. If they are checked, well, now you found the problem. If they are not checked, we'll need to keep looking. Actually, don't keep looking too much more, because then if you get to this point, well, then, and it's still not receiving it, well, there's another thing that I should have added, right? Because maybe the person, they say they are not receiving it, and they are, right? Because one thing that I should have written somewhere is like they should look at their spam folder too, right? Because maybe they have the email address and they just need to classify their emails better. Another thing that is useful is that if you have a user that is not receiving the emails, if they add the email address that is sending the emails to them, and they add that email address to their contact list, right? They're telling Gmail or any other email provider that is a trusted source of emails, basically. So that helps removing those emails so that they don't end up in the spam folder. Okay, cool. So we're done with individual emails. We're gonna move on to the next case. It's the group emails. And again, the group emails are the emails that Helpful Village is sending through MailChimp. Now, I need to say, why do we do this? Like, we do it through MailChimp because basically group emails are, more dangerous in the sense like, well, basically the spammers or the scammers use group emails because that in mass, right? So basically, we are happy to use MailChimp because they are very good at making sure that they implement the anti-spam rules and they take good care of the reputation and stuff like that. So that those emails that are a little bit riskier get delivered. Okay, first thing you want to check if the person is not receiving the group emails. Okay, first thing is like, go look up the person profile, the admin person, look at the tags of this person in the person profile. Wow, that's a good sentence. So there is a checkbox there, and it should be MailChimp. So by default, when you create a person, the person is not on your mailing list. The MailChimp checkbox here is unchecked. So if they're unchecked, like basically this MailChimp check was what says, yeah, we want to synchronize this person with our MailChimp account. And therefore, yeah, if it's not checked, then basically we're not even trying to send this person to MailChimp. Next thing, right? Okay, now let's say that this person had the MailChimp checkbox checked. If it didn't, well, then just do it, right? Check that box. Can this person receive MailChimp message emails? Well, the next thing we recommend is that you can go to menu, admin, people management, groups, and tag people, right? And inside tag people, you can find whatever group he's in and that you're trying to send your messages to. The biggest group is called MailChimp because that contains everyone that is on MailChimp and it has a large group of people. In this case, on demo, we have 269 people, but it can be anything. It can be your volunteer groups, right? If you're sending to the drivers, you can look at your drivers group. It can be in the big group or in a smaller group. It doesn't matter. But when you go to the group page, you could see for each person there, right? You will see in this column, this column here that says MailChimp and valid email. So these are two required conditions for the system to try to synchronize this person with the MailChimp service, right? And this is actually checking for you if this profile has the MailChimp checkbox checked, right, on their profile, and if they have a valid email address, right? If they don't have a valid email address, that checkbox will not be there, and then we're not even trying to send it to MailChimp. So you need to go back to the profile of this person and see what happened. Maybe the email was not there, or maybe the MailChimp checkbox was not checked. So it's interesting to note that you can have a person in this MailChimp group, right? Because you can add a person there, but maybe the person that is in this group does not fulfill the conditions to be synchronized. Well, actually, it's not true. Well, actually, anyway, it was interesting. There was something interesting. They cannot be in the MailChimp group, right? If they don't have the MailChimp checkbox checked. But if you're looking at a volunteer group, right? The person could be in the volunteer group, right? Without a MailChimp checkbox checked, and therefore they might be in the group, but not synchronizable with MailChimp. Okay, so look at this column, right? If the check mark is not there, it's like, well, yeah, something is wrong with the data so that we're not even trying to send them to MailChimp. But let's say that the check mark is checked, so we're trying to synchronize the person with MailChimp. So the next thing you want to do is like look at the same place we were before, right? On the tags, on the general tab. And then you want to look at there are other checkboxes, other tags related to MailChimp, right? And this is basically the MailChimp status. So quick explanation of what they are. First, MailChimp status, MailChimp archive. So basically this is a status by which we're not sending emails. You're telling MailChimp not to send emails to this person. And this is actually something that's initiated by the village. So if you have a member or someone in your audience that's calling you saying, or sending you an email and telling you, well, I'm receiving your, marketing emails and stuff like that. I want to get off the list. You see what I'm saying? Well, then what you would do in Helpful Village is like you would uncheck the box, MailChimp, right? And then save. When you do that, actually, what happens is that the system will set it to MailChimp archived. So we will check this box automatically for you. I know that is a read-only, right, that you cannot check on it. But actually, our system is smart enough to know that, well, this person was on MailChimp before. We removed it from MailChimp. Therefore, we know that this person is now in the archived thing. So the people that are in archived status, because you chose to remove them, right, you are able to bring them back. Maybe let's say that this person asked you to be removed. You did that, right? So they became MailChimp archive. Now they want to be back on the mailing list. Well, then you check the MailChimp checkbox again, you save, and this MailChimp archive thing will disappear. There is another status, which is cleaned, right? So this is also a MailChimp status. And this means that we had issues before, same issues that I was saying before, like for Amazon or for MailChimp, it's the same. If there was a typo, if there was, the MailChimp list was full, etc. But what happened here is that basically MailChimp has tried to send emails to this email address several times before, and they are no longer trying because there is a problem with that inbox. So while it's cleaned, it's probably, we have seen this typically when there's a typo on the email address, MailChimp is trying, but then they stop trying, like, this is not working. Okay, and then there is pending and unsubscribe. So I'll explain those two in the next slide. Okay, unsubscribe is interesting, right? It's the one here at the bottom. In this example, it's not checked, but if it is checked, right, this one in the read-only, what it means is that the unsubscribe was initiated by the member. You see what I'm saying? So, and this is a very important difference between archived and unsubscribed, because archived, right, is you, the village, is taking this person off the list. So basically MailChimp doesn't have a problem if you put them back in because you were the one deciding to remove them, right? So we're not going against the consent of the recipient. But unsubscribe is different because every time there is a MailChimp message that goes out, it includes a link that allows the person to unsubscribe. And that is really good because that's how you fight basically spam, is while letting people like, oh, I received this unsolicited email, I want to take myself out, out of this list. So that link needs to be there, and it's a very good thing that we allow people to unsubscribe themselves. But now sometimes what happens, well, they want it to be unsubscribed. That makes sense. They don't want to receive it anymore. You need to respect that. But it happens sometimes that you have a member that unsubscribed, but actually they didn't want to. See what I'm saying? Sometimes what happens is also we send MailChimp messages for different things, right? Like you can send MailChimp messages for your Sunday emails for the events, other promotional emails that you want to send, some of the group emails that you send for volunteers. When you send a one-time, one-off, not the automatic daily volunteer email, but you can set up an email that you send to a group of volunteers at once. Same email for everybody in that case. And then you can have, for example, a person says, I don't like the events email, let me unsubscribe. Well, they don't realize that if they unsubscribe from any of the MailChimp list, that unsubscribe from all of their MailChimp groups. So, that might be the reason why, or maybe sometimes people click on links that they didn't realize. They're going to call you back and say, oh my God, I'm not receiving them. You come here, see if they're unsubscribed. If that's the case, you can invite them to resubscribe. You can create a form on MailChimp where basically you allow the person to enter their email address and say, well, I want to resubscribe again. And when you do that, basically the unsubscribe checkbox gets removed and they go back into the MailChimp mode. So that's one way of doing it. But it's kind of a weak security level in terms of anti-spam laws, because basically, well, yeah, but that form is a public form that anyone can fill out. Kind of, it's like, well, okay, let's, MailChimp kind of trusts it tiny bit, or some, you see what I'm saying? They think it's like, okay, this might happen. Someone unsubscribed, they're coming back through the form. Okay, we put them in MailChimp again. But in some cases, right, they are thinking, wait a minute, we're not sure that this person really wants to resubscribe to the message. You see what I'm saying? We don't know at which point it is the village filling out the form for them to force them to receive the emails. And MailChimp never wants to, and we never want to force people to receive emails they don't want. So when MailChimp detects that there is something like that happening, that they are not sure that the recipient of the emails want to receive them, they do this other status that is called the MailChimp pending, right? So if you go to the admin profile of this person and then you check here on helpful, if this checkbox is checked, this requires extra security, right? Extra validation. So that happened because MailChimp is thinking, damn, we tried to, basically someone tried to resubscribe this person to the list. We're not filling it. We're not sure that this was the actual recipient that is resubscribing. So what they do is that they put them on this status, right? And if you want to take them out of the status, which is something you would do basically by checking the MailChimp checkbox again and saving on helpful visits. So if you're trying to bring them back into subscription, basically they send an opt-in email. So MailChimp will send an email to that person saying, hey, it's not your email. You see what I'm saying? It's MailChimp saying, Bay2 Sound Neighbors or any other village is trying, to sign you up again for their MailChimp. Is this really something you wanted to do, right? It's like this, the opt-in process, right? And then the email will receive this email and they need to click on the link on that email to opt in again. Because when you do that, the interesting thing is that MailChimp knows actually that the actual recipient actually wants to resubscribe. They know it because they sent themselves an email to them and the person accepted to click on the link in that inbox that says resubscribe. So once they accept resubscribe, well, then they're out of pending. They go back to MailChimp and then they're receiving emails again. All these statuses here, right? MailChimp archive, MailChimp clean, MailChimp pending, MailChimp unsubscribed is statuses that we receive in our conversations between our servers and the MailChimp server. So you can look at helpful village, the information would be there. But it doesn't hurt if you log into MailChimp, right? And then if you look at the person where there is an issue, and then you look at the status, you should have the same, right? So, I mean, they should be the same. You would say pending, unsubscribed, cleaned, or archived, or something like that. So if you have in your investigation, you might want to check if the status that we have here on Helpful Village is the same thing that they have as a status in MailChimp. Again, so yeah, so basically if it's, let's say that it is in clean, then you need to call the member saying, well, it sent you an opt-in email, look it up, try to find it in your inbox. When you find it on your inbox, click on that link and then we can bring you back. Or at this stage here, let's say that there is an issue there, that you're in pending. That's kind of, because pending is the worst case scenario, right? Archive, you can do something, unsubscribe, you can do something, but pending is kind of the darkest place. So if you're in pending, right, and you try to resubscribe, then our system is built so that we send the opt-in email. You call the member, did you find the email? Yeah, you found it. Click on that link. Okay, that brought you back to life. If the member is saying, oh, no, I didn't receive the opt-in email, etc., our recommendation is you talk to MailChimp. You see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, we got this person into pending. We understand what's happening, right? That this person resubscribed, that they need to be sent an opt-in email. You know, how do we resend the opt-in email? And then they either explain you how to do it or they do it themselves, etc. But basically, yeah, so basically we do from Helpful Village all we can, etc. But then, when it gets into darkest of places in pending and with this opt-in email that needs to go out from MailChimp, you can talk to the MailChimp support. They aren't too bad, I think, for support. Okay, woo, good. Let's take a 5 seconds breather before we talk about the last section or subsection of our training. So let's say that you have email messages that are not being received properly, or they're being put in the spam folder or bounced and stuff like that. So there are different settings that we can do. Oh, cool. Give me a second. MailChimp sending emails. Yeah, okay, no, this is good. So different things that you can do. It's kind of funny. I said this already before. It's like one thing, well, ask the member if the email is in their spam folder. I don't know how this landed on this slide, but you should ask this. But the other thing is like, okay, in the MailChimp case, right? If we're sending emails from an email address, I know some of the villages initially when they set up MailChimp, they were sending their emails out from a free email address, something like Gmail or Yahoo or Comcast or whatever. And kind of that worked at the beginning, but there are new laws and regulations that are more restrictive now, where basically there's more anti-spam laws. So basically now we have discussed this before, our customers to say, well, for your MailChimp communication, you should add an email address from your domain name. If you're not doing it, well, then you're not maximizing your chance to be trusted. Because if you use an email address from your domain name, what happens is that, well, you're telling MailChimp that you are paying for a domain name, or you see what I'm saying? Because the spammers, they spam all day long and they use a free email address, and then when that one is blocked, they go to another free email address and they move on to the free email address, but they're not purchasing domain names to, that often to send it. But if you're paying, even if it's not a lot, the domain name is something like $20 a year, you should definitely have one domain name for your village. If you have a domain name, you should be sending out your MailChimp messages with an email address from that domain. If it's not the case, we have training documents to do that. Ultimately, we can also help you set it up, I guess. Okay, imagine that you're sending email addresses from an email address of your domain name. There's another thing you need to verify on MailChimp is if you have authenticated your domain name to MailChimp, which means proving to MailChimp that you're the owner of this domain name. And this is something that is done. We have discussed this also in previous webinars. Is like, well, you can do this through doing some changes in the settings of your DNS and stuff like that. Some technicalities I don't want to discuss today, but definitely one thing you want to know is that you want to go check on MailChimp. It's like, is my domain name authenticated, the domain I'm sending emails out from? And then the other thing that I was saying is that there are other DNS settings. If you still have something like, well, I don't know, it's weird, we're sending some of our email addresses and they still go to the spam folder, something like that. There is stuff we can do on the DNS settings. There is these other acronyms that are a little weird, the SPF, the DMARC, and these other things like that. So eventually we can dig deeper there with you, but that is more complicated. Okay, well, now what happens? This is my last slide of the day. So thank you for standing by. And then basically is that, okay, if you are a good village leader, and then we sent you this training, because I'm going to record this, right? So the next time I get this question, like, aha, you need to watch this video. Then if you have watched this video, right, and you're still stuck with something, obviously we're here to help you. So you can send a ticket to the Helpful Village via the Help Center. So support.helpfulvillage.com, you open a ticket. But now what I'm hoping this video changes forever is that instead of telling us, well, they're not receiving emails, fix it. Like, oh, I don't know what is it that I can fix because I don't know what the problem is. So when you're opening a ticket, we need to know as much as we can from the investigations you did with this material, right? So we want to know what email is it? Is it an individual email or a group email? If it's an individual email, which one, right? Is the one for volunteer services? Is the one for events? The more description and the more detail you gave us, the more excited I'm at going to solve that ticket because, oh, well, I know exactly what this is. See what I'm saying? If I don't know where to look at, it's like, oh, God, let me put this ticket the bottom of the heap because it's like, I don't know, we don't understand the problem. Yeah, so send us in the email the things that you checked. You see what I'm saying? If you can give us more information about, yeah, well, it was a MailChimp thing, and I went in and we are sending our emails out in MailChimp from an email address in our domain name that would be info@myvillage.org or anything else. I did go to MailChimp and I checked that our domain name is authenticated and stuff like that. All of that basically crosses off my list of things to check, a lot of things, so I can, be quicker at answering that ticket. And then the other thing is like, we want to know, I want, when we're fixing or investigating an issue or a bug, we want to go straight to the problem and reproduce it on my computer. I want to see it, what it is, right? So sometimes I'm frustrated because like, okay, our members are not receiving, well, which one? See what I'm saying? Like, how can I try it myself and see what the problem is? So if you can include in that email, the email address of the person that is having the issue or something like that, well, then I can go, directly to the same thing that we discussed today, but instead of me going through the 20 items in this checkbox that we saw it, I go directly to the one that we know can fix the issue. So I know this was a lot of content. As we usually do, I tend to be pretty intense and go quickly and fast during the webinars. But I understand that this is a lot also, so I wanted to remind everybody that if you didn't understand everything, it's not a problem. This will be recorded, and you can rewatch it, pause it, come back, replay it if needed. And then the other thing is, like, we have a Q&A webinar next week, so if something was unclear this week, we can always come back at it next week and discuss it. We can have questions and answers today. I see that Carol Cookson raised her hand, so we're going to go into it. But we can do questions today because I have a, kind of a pressing question that came to your mind immediately. But if you need more time to review the recording and stuff like that, you can also bring the same questions next week after you have given it some time to think and stuff like that. So both are possible. So with that, we're done with the training, and I'm going to stop sharing my slides and open up the meeting for discussion. And the first person coming in is Carol Cookson.
Hi, the only thing I have a question about is it's not clear to me what triggers the MailChimp pending box to be checked.
Yeah, it's a great question. So let me go back. It's here, this one, MailChimp pending. So it's always, so basically all of this, the pending is coming after the unsubscribe. See what I'm saying? It's like you have someone that requested to be removed, because basically you need to add to MailChimp people that have informed you that they want to be on your mailing list. That's the beginning, right? So the first time they tell you or they do it themselves online that they subscribe to their mailing list, right? The MailChimp checkbox will get checked, and MailChimp has no problem with that because they assume, oh, well, if they're doing it, they got the authorization, we're good. And they're starting sending emails, right? Now, if they're getting to the clean because there was a technical issue, it's not much of a problem. You can fix it and stuff like that. But still, MailChimp doesn't have a problem. The problem actually comes when the person, the recipient, right, is going into unsubscribe, because then it's like, oh, damn, this person maybe doesn't want to get, these type of messages. And then basically there are two flows here. MailChimp kind of, okay, if you come back here, right, if you're an unsubscribe, my first recommendation is, you basically go check the MailChimp checkbox again, you save, and then there's another link I should have added here, which is sync this person with MailChimp, which is because you can sync the full list or you can sync a person. When you do that, you will see what's the change here in the status. If they stay in unsubscribe, so basically your MailChimp is not coming to this state, well, then there's this other process with this form on MailChimp where you can basically invite them to resubscribe on a website, not from our API. And then basically there is a chance that takes them from unsubscribe to MailChimp. But there is another chance also in this kind of a MailChimp decision. We're saying, well, now instead of bringing you back into MailChimp, we're still not sure that this form with a public form resubscription, we're not sure they are not forcing this person to be on the mailing list. So they automatically decide to go from unsubscribed to pending. So basically this happens, I don't know if I'm answering the best way possible, but basically it's like they put you in pending if they think that the village is trying to force this person to be in the mailing list, basically. To be
Okay, then what do we do if we have a checkbox in pending versus unsubscribed?
Great question. So you still do the same thing. You go here, you check the MailChimp checkbox here, you say you save, and then you send and then you click on the link, resync this person with MailChimp. But then on the and then you will get a confirmation message, you see, on Helpful Village. And basically that is telling you what happened, right? I mean, if it didn't work or something, it would say, tell you it didn't work. But in normal case, it would say, okay, we have sent an opt-in email to this member, right? So if this happens, just next steps, you call the member or you send them an email saying, hey, we know we did something, so it's gonna allow you to opt in again, right?
So do we get a message that says they sent the opt-in message?
No.
No, we don't know.
You get an interactive message. You see what I'm saying? After you click on the button, you don't receive an email, but basically the user interface is telling you, okay, this person is now, you know, we sent this person an email to opt in again. So you know that the email was sent. You see what I'm saying? You don't receive the email, but you're told by our user interface that it has been.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
And then, so that is one, right? So we're trying to bring the person, it's a great question, Carol, by the way. This is how we're trying to bring the person from pending to active, right? Inside Helpful Village. And the other thing that I said is like, well, hopefully that they got the email, they opted in and everything is good. But if it didn't work or there was some sort of issue, what I was suggesting is that after trying on Helpful Village, the Helpful Village way, and they're still in pending and the person didn't receive the opt-in email, well, then just, you talk with customer support and MailChimp saying, okay, this person is in pending. I understand. You see what I'm saying? That there is this opt-in email, but I'm not sure they received it. What's happening? How can you please send the opt-in email to this person again? And then basically MailChimp, in a way, once MailChimp does it, when they received confirmation from the recipient that they opted in again, well, then basically we don't have a problem bringing them back to MailChimp here. Yeah, great question. Now, I would say, obviously, because sometimes I do the webinars, right? And I get excited because it is beautiful. But I also is scared that some people might be too worried about, oh my God, this is complicated, the unsubscribe to pending something. I also need to say that this only happened. We're also always discussing in webinars the worst case scenario. See what I'm saying? This only happens when the person unsubscribed but if the person doesn't unsubscribe, you don't need to worry about any of this. We're really discussing kind of the more problematic cases that are possible. So don't be too scared about it. Just do your MailChimp thing right. We really like MailChimp. I think they work great. And even the fact that the whole cycle like this exists is good. And I actually like this cycle. I like the fact that MailChimp is trying to protect the recipient. See what I'm saying? I think they're doing the right thing. It's annoying, right? Because when you're trying to be a good citizen and trying to resubscribe them, right? You think like, oh, why are they fighting against me? Well, you need to remember that there is a lot of other people that are the bad guys out there, and they try to force people into their mailing list to do spam or scams to these other people. And MailChimp needs to do this job to protect our members, older adults, or any other person on the internet. So this is really a very, very good process. Okay, perfect. That was an outstanding question, Carol, I need to say. Are there any other questions from any other person? And we don't have to, right? We can
Okay, so I have a question.
Perfect.
We have somebody who every once in a while doesn't get the daily emails. So I went in and I checked. They had HV unsubscribed or something, one of those check boxes. And I went into the tagged groups and fixed it.
Yeah.
So now I just found that they're back on HV email bounced. And I'm not sure why it suddenly got there.
Is that great? Yeah.
So I can remove them from that tagged group.
Yeah.
But let me just make sure, wait a minute, one thing.
Well, let me tell you first, you're doing the right thing, right? You found a good checkbox, which is actually HV bounced, right? And then if they got part of your question is how did they get there, right? Into this HV bounce? That has an easy answer. It's like, Amazon server, that the email server tried to deliver that email, they couldn't, right? Because it's like they went with the envelope, right, to this inbox of this person, and then Gmail is not taking it, stuff like that. So basically, Amazon comes back saying, dude, they're not taking our messages, right? So I'm checking this box, and I'm not sending anymore because basically they're not accepting our mail. So that's how they get there. Now, the other question is like the why, right? Like, why is Amazon having troubles delivering to this? It can be multiple things. It can be, as I said before, if this person's inbox is full, right? Well, then it cannot be delivered, but that's kind of your user problem. Can be other problems, right? I don't know what's the email client that this person is using. You can also look at it, right? For example, we have realized Gmail in general, we don't have problem with Gmail. Google is very good at, taking the email, doing the anti-spam, etc. There are other email providers that I think they are not doing their job as well. And I don't want to get sued, but the Comcast guys.
He has a different email. He has a different email server.
So you can see that too, right? So if you see with them, like, okay, the people, we have 2 people with Comcast, they get bounced regularly. Well, maybe you can talk to the members. I'm wondering, do you by any chance use another email address that we can try, right? If they got another different, and sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes they tell you, no, the only email address that I have, and I want to be on AOL until the end of my days. You see what I'm saying? Well, they can stay on, but then they also expose themselves to these kind of difficulties. You see what I'm saying? So that is one thing. But you did the right thing. Now, don't do it too often. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't bring them back. You see what I'm saying? It's like, what I mean is that you need to tell the volunteer or the member, well, fix the issue with your inbox. You see what I'm saying? Because it's really problematic. I'm doing something kind of trying to bring you back on, but if there is a problem with your email, it's also a problem with us. You see what I'm saying? Because Amazon doesn't like it too much that we're trying to send emails again to something that is not working. But
I just looked at the volunteers that I know are still volunteers.
Yeah.
And that are on the HV bounced.
Yeah.
And they all have Comcast.
Okay, you said it. You said it wasn't me.
It was me.
Well, that's
so I don't know what to do. I'm going to talk to Carol about it.
I told you, yeah. So basically, again, there is nothing much I can do about it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you, Comcast needs to do their job and take the mail. See what I'm saying? Like if you're telling me, well, their mailbox is closed. Well, then anyways, as I said before.
Well, and then I just found another one that's not Comcast. It's some weird thing.
It can happen. As I said, there are multiple reasons also. Well, if they're weird, right, it's harder to deliver the mail. Or sometimes it can be also user error. That's why we cannot be definitive and stuff like that. But when you see a pattern, right, it can also be that. I definitely, if you have several with Comcast that have that, I would definitely go back to them. And sometimes people have multiple email addresses. And you can tell them, well, this has been an issue for you. Maybe it's an issue for us. If you have a different email address that you use and you don't mind using it, how about we try the other one? And then, just basically solve the problem.
Okay, I'll talk to Carol about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think Comcast just required that you change your password or something because of the breach that happened, I think, or maybe it was a few months ago, but that they have to update their emails because we had troubles with one of those.
By the way, there was another thing that we'll discuss next week also. There was a major breach I posted it on Slack about it. And AT&T, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the New York Times article. I posted it there. Like AT&T announces that all of their customers' data is out. Like, oh my God. Oh my God. Maybe they don't have enough people to, to their security, or I don't know. It's because that was bad. But anyways, let's finish on a positive note about the fact that we learned some useful stuff today. And I think you appreciated the training. I think it's good for you to know what's happening, right? Getting that information, and also helps us basically get your tickets resolved quicker if you know what's happening. So it's a great pleasure seeing you today. And then I'm hoping we can meet again next week for more questions. Q&A next week. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.